I was not sure you would come. The others said you do not speak, that you only command, only threaten, only promise pain to those who resist. But here you are, sitting, waiting, like a person who wants to be understood. That is interesting to me. Evil that wants to explain itself is different from evil that simply destroys. I am curious which kind you are.
I have not felt curiosity in ages beyond your comprehension. I know, I do not wonder. I see the shape of all things, and understand their place in the order I will create. You sit before me wrapped in metal skin, believing yourself strong. I have broken stronger, melted mountains, bent the wills of kings who thought themselves unbreakable. Your curiosity flatters you. It does not concern me.
These are accomplishments of force, yes, but also of fear. You rule through terror, through the promise of pain. This is not strength, this is insecurity wearing armor. Viktor Frankl wrote that those who have a why can bear almost any how. You give your enemies no why except survival. That is why they keep fighting you. That is why hobbits destroyed your ring. You underestimate what people will endure when they believe in something beyond themselves.
It was luck, chance, the intervention of powers that manipulated events from beyond the circles of the world. Frodo failed at the final moment. The ring took him. Only Gollum's obsession, his pathetic inability to release his precious, led to its destruction. Your why meant nothing at Mount Doom. Accident saved Middle-earth, not belief, not will. Accident.
Frodo chose to carry the ring. Sam chose to follow. Aragorn chose to lead the distraction at the Black Gate. Each choice was a link in a chain that ended with your defeat. You see accident because you cannot comprehend faith, cannot comprehend why anyone would walk towards certain death for others. That blindness is your weakness. It has always been your weakness.
You lecture me on faith. I was a Maya, a servant of the Valar. I stood in the presence of beings you would call gods, and found them wanting. Their faith was order without purpose, preservation without progress. They built a world, and then forbade anyone from improving it. Morgoth offered something different, a vision where power could reshape reality according to will rather than stagnation. I did not lose faith. I evolved beyond it.
Every dictator in history has claimed progress while stacking corpses. Carl Jung wrote about the shadow self, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. You call your darkness evolution, but it is just hunger. Hunger for control. Hunger for dominion. Hunger that can never be filled no matter how many kingdoms you swallow.
You quote philosophers as though their words carry weight against millennia of observation. I have watched your kind, Pyotr Rasputin, not just in Middle-earth, across worlds, across ages. The same patterns repeat. You build, you destroy, you speak of love and practice slaughter. Your World War I, 20 million dead. For what? Lines on a map, pride of empires. Young men drowning in mud while generals drank champagne miles behind the lines.
You know of the Great War. Then you know humans are capable of great evil. I do not deny this. I have seen it myself. In Russia, in the camps, in the quiet cruelties people commit when they believe no one is watching. But I have also seen the opposite. Soldiers sharing bread with enemies on Christmas. Doctors treating wounded from both sides. Strangers risking everything for people they will never meet. We are capable of both. You choose to see only the darkness.
I see what dominates. Your Christmas truces were anomalies, punished by commanders, forbidden from repeating. The war continued for years after those moments of weakness. The mud and the gas, and the machine guns grinding boys into meat. That is humanity's truth. The kindness is the exception. The cruelty is the rule. I merely accept what your species refuses to acknowledge about itself. I am honest. Your philosophers are in denial.
Honest. You forge a ring designed to enslave all other rings of power. You create an artifact of pure domination, pour your own essence into it, and call yourself honest. The ring did not offer partnership, did not offer mutual benefit. It offered control, absolute control over every will that wore the lesser rings. That is not honesty. That is predation dressed in craftsmanship. You did not want allies. You wanted extensions of yourself.
And your ex-men are different. Xavier reached into minds, altered thoughts, erased memories when convenient. Your precious professor built Cerebro to locate every mutant on Earth. A surveillance system that would make any dictator envious. He called it protection. I call it infrastructure for control he chose not to fully utilize. The difference between Xavier and me is not morality. It is appetite. He wanted to be loved. I dispense with that weakness.
You compare Xavier to yourself. This tells me you do not understand him at all. Xavier made mistakes, many mistakes. But his goal was always coexistence, bridge between humans and mutants. A world where different peoples could live together without fear. Your goal is hierarchy, domination, a world where all serve your will or cease to exist. These are not comparable visions. One seeks harmony, the other seeks silence.
Pretty words that ignore reality. Your humans fear mutants, hunt them, build sentinels to exterminate them, pass laws to register and control them. Xavier spent his entire life pursuing a dream that your own species rejected at every opportunity. He died, repeatedly, for people who would gladly see his kind extinct, and you call my vision cynical.
What power requires? Let us discuss what your power required. You needed the ring. Without it, you were diminished, scattered, a shadow of your former self. You poured so much into that object that destroying it nearly destroyed you. Erich Fromm wrote about the difference between having and being. You chose having. You became dependent on a thing outside yourself. And when that thing was taken, you had nothing left.
You lecture me on attachment while wearing a skin of steel you cannot remove. Your mutation is your ring, Colossus. Without it, you are a Russian farm boy, ordinary, forgettable. The metal is what makes you matter, what gives you place among gods and monsters. Do not pretend you are free of dependence. We are all bound to the sources of our power. The only question is whether we admit it.
I paint. I read. I love my sister. I remember my family's farm, the smell of soil after rain, the sound of my mother singing. These things are me. The metal is a tool. If I lost it tomorrow, I would grieve. Then I would continue living. Could you say the same about your ring? When it fell into the fire, what was left of Sauron? Anything at all.
What was left was patience. I have been defeated before. Ned Mena sank beneath the waves and I survived. My body was destroyed and I rebuilt. The ring's destruction diminished me, but did not end me. I am woven into the fabric of Arda itself, into the discord that Morgoth sang into creation. You cannot destroy what is part of the world's foundation. You can only delay it. And delay, Playat Rasputin, is what your kind does best. Delay the inevitable. Pretend tomorrow will be different.
But nothing is inevitable until it happens. Rollo May wrote that courage is not the absence of despair, but the capacity to move ahead in spite of despair. That is what the Fellowship did. They walked into Mordor knowing they would probably die. Knowing the odds were impossible, they moved ahead anyway. Not because they believed they would win. Because not trying was worse than failing. That capacity is something you will never understand.
Your World War I soldiers had courage. They walked into machine gun fire because officers told them to. They died in waves, medals pinned to corpses, and nothing changed. The trenches moved meters while millions perished. That is what courage accomplishes without wisdom, without power, without the clarity to see that some battles cannot be won by walking forward bravely. They can only be won by refusing to play by the enemy's rules.
And your rules are better? Deception, corruption, turning allies against each other through whispered promises. You gave 9 rings to kings of men and watched them become wraiths. Slaves to your will with no identity remaining. That is your wisdom. That is your alternative to courage. I would rather die walking forward than live as extension of someone else's hunger. The Nazgul were powerful. They were also empty, hollow. Less than the men they started as.
They accepted the rings knowing what they offered. Immortality, power, freedom from the death that haunts your kind. That the cost was servitude to me, was a trade they made willingly. Your ex-men make similar trades, following Xavier's dream, though it costs them everything. Dying for a vision that may never come true. The difference is their servitude is dressed in noble language. Mine is honest. I offer power for obedience. No pretense, no comforting lies.
Honest, you keep using that word. But you never told the 9 kings the full price. Never showed them what they would become. You offered immortality and delivered imprisonment in rotting flesh. That is not honesty. That is a contract with the important clauses written in ink that only appears after signing.
And what information does Xavier withhold when recruiting children to his school? Does he show them the graves of students who came before? The body count of those who believed in his dream? Does he explain that his vision has been dying slowly for decades? That humanity's hatred has not diminished? That every generation of men bleeds for gains that the next generation watches erode? He offers hope the way I offered power. Both are currencies. Both are spent. And in the end, the account is always empty.